Dear God, thank you so much. Thank you so much. Thank you for this beautiful chapel where we are able to gather together to celebrate you and your love and all of the lessons that you teach us. Thank you for every single person that is here sitting in this room and every single person that is sitting online. Thank you for all of the new people that you are bringing so that we can uplift them and inspire them and give them a community which is filled with love and hope and joy. Thank you so much for creating this church family. Thank you so much that you open our minds and our hearts so that we can learn lessons that we need to learn. We know sometimes it is uncomfortable to look at parts of ourselves that need to change, but we are so grateful that you give us the ability to be resilient and to bounce back, that when we get kicked in the stomach with a piece of information we don't particularly like, we understand that it is meant to help us to grow. And that if we can use that knowledge to help other people, it will be all for a purpose and not for naught. We thank you so much that you give us strength, that you give us wisdom, that you give us the ability to feel your presence in our lives in more magnificent ways every single day. We thank you so much for giving us the ability to grow. We understand it is our job here on earth to be the best people we can possibly be, and that every single day we need to be growing and expanding and trying to be our best and highest selves. We understand that we need to be humble sometimes, and we need to understand that our ego takes over and tells us things that is not true. We talked about that a lot last week, and that we need to let go of all of that. We need to put aside any false images that we have of ourselves. When we tell ourselves things that aren't true, we need to be able to face the truth, and you give us the courage to do that every single day. We thank you in advance for all of the healing that you are bringing to all of us, and for the love that you show us in such immeasurable ways we can't possibly quantify it. We thank you from the very, very bottom of our hearts, and so it is. Amen. All right, so the name of today's talk is Know Thyself. To the words you speak, match who you are. And the song was Words by Hawk Nelson. So we will be talking about knowing yourself. We will be talking about the self-perception problem, that what we think about ourselves is actually not always what we're putting out into the real world. We will be talking about unity metaphysics. We will be talking about knowing thyself and the personality and individuality as it is discussed in terms of metaphysics, the importance of knowing who and what you are, your God self. The goal is to become fully present to all of your God attributes, able to choose to come from a place of a Christ mind. We cannot see ourselves clearly. We need feedback from others so that we can gain an understanding of what we present to the world. Are we being who we really want to be? We'll talk about how to know yourself, a talk by Jordan Peterson. We will talk about the fact that we have to study ourselves, know ourselves, set an intention for who we want to be every day, that our words show who we really are as much as our actions do. So we're going to start off with the self-perception problem by Brendon Burchard. Brendon Burchard is a very, very successful motivational speaker and author. He has 4 books on personal development. He is a coach. Oprah said he is one of the most influential leaders in the personal growth movement today. So he says sometimes we hit this pain point where you perceive yourself different from everyone around you, what their viewpoint of you is. You understand that you have a viewpoint of yourself, and when you ask somebody else, their viewpoint of you is really different from what you think you are. And sometimes you think that you're doing really great and everybody else is just being mean. Sometimes you are really down on yourself and everybody else says, actually, you're doing really, really well. So it's about understanding that the perception that we have of ourselves is often not accurate at all. There's a challenge between the self-perception and how others perceive us. We want to make sure that we are setting an intention every single day for who we want to be. What kind of person do I want to show up in the world? How do I want to feel? How do I want to treat people? What is the real me? If you can't articulate the real you, what your values are, and set an intention every day for how you want to show up in the world, don't expect anybody else to be able to understand the real you either. Be clear about your values. It begins with an intention of clarity of yourself first. You've got to do the personal development work. You've got to read, you've got to write, you've got to do all of the steps that are necessary for you to really understand yourself. People get miserable. They say, no one understands me. But the fact is, they don't really understand themselves. It all begins with an intention to have clarity about who you really are. What are the words that define you? I want to be a person who is, fill in the blank. If people see you on a consistent basis being the you that you really want to be, then they will see who you really are. But you have to set the intention first. So it all starts by having a discussion. You have to ask other people how they perceive you. If you don't ask, you'll never know. Your view of yourself alone isn't accurate. External feedback can give you direction on anything that you need to work on. That's why in all of the 12-step programs, we have a sponsor, because we can go along thinking, oh, we're doing really great. Your sponsor can say, I'm kind of noticing. You just need some outside feedback. All you're trying to do is learn. It's not about judging. It's about a learning point. And then when they give you feedback, you can say that either applies, that it's true, or it isn't. You have the right to say, no, that doesn't really make sense to me. I don't think that really works. Because sometimes people will give you outside viewpoints and they're coming from their own place. And so it's not really accurate. So you get to say, no, that's not true when it's not. But make sure that you're doing progress checks. That are you being what you want to be? Are you holding to the values that are important to you? People's self-perception is often not real. It's not checked against the progress they're making. You have to do a self-evaluation compared to where you want to be. So it's again about setting intention. It's about being real with yourself. Am I being who I want? And I'm growing and expanding into the person I want to be? Remember, you are always a work in progress. Are you speaking up for your truth? Do you approach your life as an opportunity to grow and progress faster? You will have bad days and weeks and months. Acknowledge that and say, I can do better, and then move on. Are you being a role model for other people? Are you living in a way that encourages others to want to live up to their potential? Are you influencing people positively? Check your identity, who you think you are against the reality of who you are by setting an example for others. Your self-perception goes your highest when you know you are in service to others. Every day you show up to love, support, inspire, encourage, and care for others, and to be a role model. The truth that you are will make a difference. You are capable of helping other people. They see it and you feel it, and the alignment for truth comes back. You care for others and serve others and seek to be a role model. These are the things that align your self-perception of what you think you are with what others see. So we're going to move on to How to Know Yourself by Jordan Peterson. Jordan Peterson is also a very well-known speaker and writer. And he says that the Greeks were the first person who said the term know thyself. It's one of the first ways to come to know yourself, he says, is to understand that you don't. You can learn to watch yourself like watching a stranger, but you have to adopt a position of radical humility, he says. There are two sides. You are ignorant about who you are, but you are also ignorant about who you could be. You need to watch yourself, what you say, and listen and think, what sort of person would say that? And how am I acting emotionally? And what is my dark side? What am I willing to do? And what do I procrastinate about? And why? What am I unwilling to do? What do I think is good? What do I want to accomplish? What do I fail to confront? And what do I fail to implement? They are all incredibly complicated questions, and you don't know the answers unless you ask yourself. To understand your potential, you got to challenge yourself. Compare yourself to who you were yesterday, not to who somebody else is today. Take a look at yourself and think about what's not so good that you could improve, that you should improve by your own standards, not by anybody else's. Set yourself a goal of improvement, a humble goal. Are you big enough to take those small steps? Most people have things that they avoid and that they are afraid of. People vary in the degree that they're able to conquer that. Get disciplined through slow, incremental improvement. Challenge yourself every day. Could I do this better? Take responsibility for yourself. Everyone starts at the bottom. You can wrestle with the part of reality that you don't like by challenging yourself to grow. Allow yourself to be humble. Look at yourself as you really are. There will be a loss of the arrogant ego. We talked a lot about ego last time. That is what is interfering with your movement forward. You are too proud of who you think you are to notice what you're really like, and then you know what you can change. You know yourself by watching and paying attention. Watch with no emotional reaction, just to see what's there. Watch yourself and challenge yourself continually to see how far past yesterday you can push today and tomorrow. The upper limit to that is proportional to the moral effort that you put into it. The more that it is guided by the highest of all possible visions, the alliance with the highest of all possible conceivable good. The more accompanied by truth and speech and action, the more you will develop your potential. It is a hell of a responsibility, he says, to take this on. It takes a person out of the ordinary, out of themselves. There's deep meaning to be had in it, and there isn't anything better than you can do. So we're going to look at scriptural references to self-perception and the words you use. In 1 Samuel 16:7, it says, "But the Lord said to Samuel, do not look on his appearance or on the height of his stature, because I have rejected him. For the Lord sees not as man sees. Man looks on the outward appearance, but the Lord looks on the heart." Matthew 7:3, "Why do you see the speck that is in your brother's eye, but do not notice the log that is in your eye?" Psalm 139:23, "Search me, O Lord, and know my heart. Try me and know my thoughts." Proverbs 26:12, "Do you see a man who is wise in his own eyes? There is more hope for a fool than for him." Romans 12:3-8, "For by the grace given to me, I say to everyone among you, not to think of yourself more highly than he ought to think, but to think with sober judgment, such according to the measure of faith that God has assigned to him." Job 38:2, "Who is that obscures my words without having any knowledge?" And Job 36:4, "Be assured that my words are not false. One who has perfect knowledge is with me." All right, so we're going to talk about metaphysics. There are two different sides of this that I'm going to go for. I'm going to go for knowing thyself side, and then I'm going to go through the personality versus individuality. So we'll start with self-knowledge. Fillmore says, "Our most important study is our own mind, not only the intellectual mind, but the spiritual mind. Know thyself was inscribed at the temple of Apollo at Delphi. It must be inscribed on our own temple over the door of our mind. Know who and what you are, where you came from, what you are doing here, and where you are going. If you want to know all this, meditate on the I am. You have a dimension of a mind that is greater than the thinking self. From that higher level of mind, your true self-knowledge is attained. The highest concept of the I am possible for the human mind is that of spirit. You must know that the conscious I can look in two directions, the outer world or the world within, whence all of its life, power, and intelligence are derived. You must be able to view both realities. The inner life should have priority, though. It is the realm of causes and spiritual resources. A key to God mind is with everyone. It is the action of the individual mind. Man is created in the image and likeness of God. Study your own mind, and through it, you will find the God mind. In no other way can you get a complete understanding of yourself, of the universe, and of the law under which it is being brought forth. We must find our own connection with God's presence, and that can only be found in our own consciousness. We are more than our own mind, and we can rise to a dimension above our mind in order to observe it and study it. When we observe ourselves, we become more than the limits of our mind. We transcend our thinking self. Jesus emphasized with great importance of honest self-observation when he said, "Watch and pray." What are you watching? Watch what you are thinking and watch what your current attitudes are. In order for a person to know what to change within his consciousness, he must take time to observe what is going on within himself. All things are in the consciousness, and you have to learn to separate the erroneous from the true, the darkness from the light. This sifting begins right now and goes on until you are fully rounded out in all your godlike attributes. So I want to move on a little bit to talk about personality versus individuality. There are two attitudes of mind that make up our identity. Personality is the characteristics we created to distinguish ourselves from others. The other is individuality. That reflects our unique expression of the Christ mind within us. Personality is three-dimensional consciousness. The individuality is unlimited spiritual consciousness. As the true Christ self emerges, the personality decreases. Individuality is the true self, undivided from God. The spiritual identity is eternal, and it can never be destroyed. The individuality is how we say who we are. We cultivate individuality by expressing the Christ mind, by listening to the still small voice. The more you listen to the still small voice, the more you are able to represent the Christ mind within to the outside world. Personality and individuality are the framework. It gives us a chance to explore the nature of our true identity and to release all the wrong assumptions and opinions about who we think we really are. They are attitudes of the mind. Our goal is to realize every one of our attitudes can be aligned with spirit so that we can fully demonstrate the truth of who we are. Through self-observation, knowing ourselves, we are able to recognize which attitude we are expressing. Our personality or sense of self, which is inconsistent and unreliable because it is based on appearances in the material world, or our individuality, which is our spiritual self, which is the unique way that we express the Christ idea. Through self-observation, we realize we always have the opportunity to act from the highest within us, to express our true Christ identity. So here's what I know. It all started this week at work. So I have a co-facilitator that I work with, and I see him about 25 hours a week. And because he sees me so much, I gotta say, quite honestly, he knows me pretty well. He sees me all the time. And something happened and I bitched about it. And he said, you know, you complain about everything. And it was a punch in the stomach. And I was like, I froze. And he's like, oh, come on, you know, it's not that big a deal, everybody. I was like, no, you said I complain about everything. Do I really complain about everything? And then he started to list a whole bunch of things that I'd complained about. And I was like, holy crap, he's right. He's right. And I was horrified. I was absolutely horrified. It almost brought me to tears, but I said, I'm at work, I'm going to hold it together. And I also said to myself, this is a learning experience. I trust his judgment. He has no stake in saying anything that isn't true. He actually is turning into a really good friend. And he's telling me that he wasn't telling me this to change me. He was telling me just as an observation, but the reality is the observation was true. It really, really was true. I think of myself, he said, why are you so upset? I said, I think of myself as extremely grateful. I spend, 45 minutes on my knees before I even have my coffee saying how grateful I am. I think of myself as being incredibly thankful and positive. And that to hear that I'm complaining all the time, that's not who I want to be at all. And quite honestly, I was shocked. I was really, really shocked. So I started examining this self-perception knowledge and realized our self-perception is really not accurate. I started watching myself, not to judge or to criticize, just to see, is this really true? And I was really horrified. It really was true. A lot of the stuff that comes out of my mouth is complaining and negative and critical. And I wondered, as I continue this, what else will I find? We do learn a lot from listening to others' comments about us. My very best friends ends up telling me that, well, that's just what you do. Talking about that I'm pushing myself too hard, or that I need a vacation and I haven't taken a vacation, or that I didn't take enough time off, or that I don't do enough self-care. He just comes out with, well, that's just what you do. And he says it over and over again. And he's telling me that's what you do. Like, you've got a pattern and you've got to look at this pattern and you've got to own it. This is you. This is you. And he's my very, very, very best friend. I've learned a lot about all this because someone on the outside remarked about my behavior. I liked that Peterson talked so much about being humble. You have to be willing to let go of long-held beliefs and question them. And you have to be willing to really look at your behavior and listen to your words. Peterson said we should observe as a snake does, with no emotions, just trying to observe to find the next prey. We can turn off our emotions and just ask, what is it about myself that I'm willing and that I want to change? He ended with talking about how high we reach is proportional to the moral effect we put into it, and to be guided by the highest of all possible visions. Metaphysics reminds us that there is our personality part of the material world and our individuality, which is the expression of the Christ self in us. We can set an intention to grow and expand, not comparing ourselves to others, but to who we were yesterday. Brandon Burchard reminds us also that we are all works in progress. And if we seek to live by our own highest standards, not anybody else's, we can be a role model and inspire others to reach for their full potential. I think it is a lot about not judging ourselves, not beating ourselves up, but acknowledging we can get better every day at being our best selves. I am for sure going to keep watching my words and paying attention to what is coming out of my mouth. So I will not be presenting to others someone who is not in alignment with my true values. I will keep studying myself, grounded in truth that I am always a work in progress. I'm going to try to learn more about myself and make sure my words are in alignment with my truth. Complaining sometimes is human, but if I complain about everything, that's not okay. And it's not ever who I want to be. And it doesn't live up to who I say that I am. And it doesn't show how grateful I am and that I have this incredibly amazing life. My awareness showed me that complaining happened when things were not going the way I thought that they should. It was about being critical and judgmental. And these are qualities I will work on changing one day at a time. We all want to be our best selves, to set an example and inspire others. But first, we have to follow the advice, know thyself, and watch that the words we speak match who we are. And so it is. Remember, at all times, the power is in you. It always has been, and it always will be.